Hey everybody, and welcome back to my weekly Rage Fix. The story goes as follows. It's a biblical story. There were two brothers, the older brother and the younger brother. They were twins. Esav, the older brother, he's the evil one. Yakov, he's the younger brother, he's the good one. Yakov is in the tent one day. They're both 15 years old, and he's making some lentil soup. Very delicious. Esav comes back from a long day in the field. He was hunting, he was killing animals, and he comes back from the field very, very hot and very, very hungry. And he says, Yakov, what are you making over there? He says, some lentil soup. He says, give it to me. Just pour it down my throat. I'm starving. And Yaakov says, no problem. I'll give it to you on one condition. He says, what's the condition? He says, you are the eldest. You are the older one in this relationship. I want your right to being the elder. I want it. Sign over your rights to being the elder son, and I'll give you this lentil soup. And Esav says, hey, I'm going to die someday anyway. What's it worth to me? And he signs over his right to be the eldest, and Yaakov gives him the soup. Question is, what's going on over here? Because this right to the eldest, this birthright, was a lot more than just, oh, I get the Jaguar, you get the car. It's a lot more than that. It's about the future of the Jewish people. Their grandfather was Abraham. Their father was Isaac. The next child in line, the eldest child in line, is going to be the father of a whole nation. By Esav signing over the right to being the eldest, he actually is giving the right of being the father of the Jewish people over to Yaakov. His sons and his grandson, his great-grandsons, are now going to be the keepers of the chain. They're going to be the ones who hold the torch. Esav signs it all over for a bowl of lentil soup. The question is that right? Is that right for Yaakov to do? He's hungry, he's starving, he comes in from the field, he needs something to eat. So Yaakov says, oh, no problem, I'll give it to you. But you got to sign me over the most important thing ever in the history of the world. And Esav does it. What's going on over here? Is that right to do? Rabbi Eliyahu Mashinsky tells the following parable. There was a very, very poor Jew, very, very poor. And his daughter got married. He was so happy, but he was also sad because he didn't have a penny to marry her off. So he goes to the Rebbe, and he says, Rebbe, what should I do? I don't have a penny. How can I marry off my daughter? Please help me. And the rabbi says, I'll tell you what. I want you to go down the street, and the first business deal you make, do it. Anybody who offers you to do any kind of business deal, take it, grab it in a second, even if it's the most ridiculous business deal in the world. Just grab it. He says, Rebbe, I only have a few rubles. You sure? He says, yes, just do it. So that's what he does. He's walking down the street, and he walks into a little tavern, and he sees some drunk people, and they're laughing, and this and that, and they look at him, a religious Jew sitting over here, and he looks at them, and they say, hey, religious Jew, do you believe in the world to come? And he says, yes, of course I believe in the world to come. And they say, well, I don't. And he says, well, I do. He says, I'll tell you what, I'll sell you my right in the world to come if you give me 1 ruble. And this poor Jew says, 1 ruble, and I get your right in the world to come? You get all your Olam Haba and all your Garden of Eden? And he says, yes, I'll sell it to you. Well, the Rebbe said that the first business deal that comes up, he should do. So he takes out 1 ruble of his last rubles from his pocket, he gives it to him, he signs over a contract, and he has his right in the world to come. Anyway, the man goes home that night, and he says to his wife, you're not going to believe this. The rich man, he says to his rich wife, he says, you're not going to believe this. I was in the bar today, and I saw some religious Jew, and we made a whole joke of it, and I sold my whole right in the world to come. The woman says, what? Are you crazy? You sold your whole right in the world to come? You're crazy. I can't believe you did such a thing. She says, you better go get it back right now. He says, what? It was just No, you better go get it back right now. If not, I'm divorcing you tomorrow. I don't want to have anything to do with you. He says, oy vey, what am I going to do? So he decides he has to find this Jew, and he looks and he looks, and he finally finds the Jew, and he goes over to the Jew, and he says, that whole thing, it was a big joke, give me back the contract. And he says, no, we made a business deal. A deal is a deal. And he says, no, it's ridiculous. I was drunk, I was this, I was that. You can't do it. He says, look, I'm sorry, but I made the deal. And he says, well, we got to speak to somebody. He says, let's go speak to my rabbi. So they go to the Rebbe, and they tell their case to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe says, what happened? He says, well, he sold me the right. He sold me his right to the world to come. And he says, he gave me 1 ruble. And he says, okay, I don't know what to do. He says, I'll tell you what. This man is making a wedding in a few weeks. If you agree to pay for the entire wedding, thousands and thousands and thousands of rubles, if you agree to the whole wedding, then I'll convince him to sell you back your right in the world to come. And he says, what? This is ridiculous. But he had no choice, and he agreed to pay for the entire wedding of his daughter just for his right in the world to come. And he says to the rabbi, is this right? How could you do such a thing? It's not a good business deal. This is the money I'm giving is worth much more than my world to come. It's only I only paid one. I only gave I took 1 ruble for it. And he's taking thousands and thousands. Is this really fair? The rabbi says it is fair. You know why? He says because before your world to come was only worth 1 ruble. That's what it was worth, because it's worth what you make it worth. But now that you realize how important it is, and your whole marriage is based on it, now it's worth a lot more. Well, his commodity went up. Now the worth is much more, and that's why you have to pay thousands and thousands of rubles. That's what happened over here. Esav did not appreciate what it was worth, so it was worth nothing. Spiritual things, if we don't appreciate them, what are they worth? They're worth zero. They're worth 1 ruble, 2 rubles. They're worth a bowl of lentil soup. But when we realize how important it is, and we see the spiritual life is so much beauty and so much greatness and gives us so much pleasure and so much happiness in life, it's worth so much more. And that's what Yakov realized it was. So make sure in your life you don't take things for granted. You don't say, oh, my relationship with this family member, it's not worth it, and this and that. What's really worthwhile is the things that are spiritual and the things that connect us to other people. That's worthwhile in the world. Have a great day.